Wanted to welcome everybody to Talking Preps. We normally have a lot of fun on this show and goof off, but we had some tragic news today. WBTV lost two employees you see on the screen, Chip and Jason. Chip was a helicopter pilot. Jason was a meteorologist. They had a tragic helicopter crash. Both of those young men died. Three people went to the hospital. We want to wish everybody involved, or send our hearts and prayers out to everybody involved in it's just a sad, sad day today in the Charlotte journalism world. I know that we've been talking about it all day at work, and I'm sure you guys have been talking about it as well. So on the other side, we'll get to the show. Well, hello, guys.
Howdy.
Somber opening.
I hate to do that, but I felt like it was the right thing to do.
Well,
It was really tough news today when I heard that. The journalism business is a small world, particularly in Charlotte. And a lot of these guys, you eat lunch with them, you see them different places, and it's just to think that right before Thanksgiving somebody's not going to go home today is just terrible.
Absolutely, it was tough to hear. Obviously, I've worked with WBTV and been in the studios many a time working with Nate and the guys, and it was definitely somber news when David Wisnett had sent out a message letting me know and just kind of letting me know what was going on. I was like, "Dadgum!" I mean, I heard about the helicopter crash, but you just didn't realize the details until it happened. And from what I hear, that pilot's a hero.
He was. Apparently, he steered the helicopter away from traffic and put it down in a place where nobody else was hurt. So he definitely was a big hero. So again, our hearts and prayers go out to the families of all involved, and hopefully the three people taken to the hospital will make it through safely. All right, guys. So let's talk a little football. We talked about Providence Day last week. Grice isn't here to talk about Providence Day, so I'm going to throw this to you, Dale, because I know you were at the game about Providence Day. Grice has been talking all year how Providence Day had to get over the hump, how they had to beat Christian to – wait, Grice is here. There's Grice. You've been talking all year how Providence Day had to get over the hump. Fresh haircut and everything. You've been talking all year how Providence Day had to get over the hump, and Sam was talking about it too, and Coach Greer hurt Sam.
I love Chad Gray. He's one of my favorite coaches in the whole world.
He's amazing.
I think he wants this game, but this Christian's not going to hand you this game. You're going to have to go snatch it from him. I mean, it's going to have to be straight Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, and then you're going to have to snatch their heart out.
3 days later.
They sleep on you. I know. They slept on me too. But it's all right. They'll wake up soon.
I love you, brother. I love you. But you don't doubt me now. Don't doubt me.
All right, Grace. What'd you think about the performance from the Chargers? Did they prove themselves enough for you?
Okay, kudos to my cameraman, Providence Day graduate Derek Thompson, also played football there, who enjoyed that probably a lot more than I did. They had to. I mean, I think without question, that was the game I expected the first time. You look at the two teams and looking at from the Christian side, I think Coach Estep, we talk about from a coaching standpoint of squeezing the juice of really getting the most out of your team. I really think he did that, and even for his team to be in that position is a testament to those kids and their hard working ability and Coach Estep. But switching over to the Providence Day side, I mean, you can't give me names like Peel, the Georgia commit. You can't give me names, like Jaden Davis and Jordan Shipp, and even the Brody Barnhart kid is phenomenal. Chris Peel, Braxton Winston, both manning the corner positions, and all of that talent. I'm missing a couple guys I haven't mentioned, and them not have that dominant performance. That dominant performance that they displayed was the performance that I needed to see from them, and I think that they needed to show. Fair enough, if they want to go on a national schedule and be that team that we've all talked about. I thought that the hype has been there, and they've showed it a couple times in certain performances, but they absolutely needed that against that Charlotte Christian team that's kind of had their number over the last few years.
Dale, you were at the game. What'd you see?
Well, so the first game was actually started out more dominant than the way this game went. And things happened in that game with the players. It wasn't the coaching, it was the players. And they lost their focus. So in this game, I talked to Chad about that prior to the game, and he stressed that was one thing they had worked on. So when they got up early, I turned and looked at the sideline to see were they in a scattered bunch and people over on the players over on the track. No, they were all focused, and they stayed focused the entire game. Had they stayed focused like that in the first game, we'd have seen a similar result. They didn't. So what we've seen is a giant step in maturity in those players. I was just knocked to the floor. I thought that, I felt like they'd win by 14-21, something like that.
Yeah.
I did not expect to see what happened. And they're ready. Yeah, I mean, they've got the talent. Like Bryce said, you can just keep naming players that will be D1 players, and then there will be some great D2 players that come off of these teams. And when you're loaded like that, you got to have that kind of performance. Christian was just outmanned, and they don't have the numbers. They got great athletes. They got great coaching. I'm highly impressed with them. I thought they played good football, but they just were outmatched.
And they had 5 interceptions. That you can't give Jay
I'll
Davis the ball that many more times. Switching gears, Cam, you saw Huff. They got an emotional win just a few days after they found out that a former teammate had been shot and killed. And so here we go, talking more tragedy. After the game, coach was very emotional.
Our defense played lights out again. Offensively, we did enough to win the game again. I didn't do a good job coaching this week. It's that simple. It's been a rough one. So,
Coach, you're clearly overcome with emotion. Talk about the recent passing of Mr. Chandler, and I know you were his coach, so.
Yeah, that was a great kid and great man, and we miss him to death. So but we're gonna regroup, and I can promise you this: we're gonna have a better week next week. We're not gonna play on offense like this again next week. I can promise you that. It's not our players' fault; it's my fault, and but we're gonna fix that. But they played their hearts out. Played their hearts out on offense, and we made enough plays to win.
Cam, what'd you see in that game?
Yeah, I saw a defense that played the best I've seen in this state this season. Also saw a very different side of Coach Jenkins. I've known him for a little while now, but he's always a very straight-laced guy, man of few words. But for him to show that kind of emotion and be able to coach through a game where you're playing a team that puts up 40+ a game and hold them to just a touchdown, it showed he could coach through adversity, as well as the players get a group of young men rallied to play with emotion instead of play emotional.
Chris, what did you think about that game? I know you thought East Forsyth was the best.
Well, I did think that East was probably the better team, but I'm going to have to disagree vehemently with one thing Coach Matt Jenkins said. And I've known Matt Jenkins for maybe 14, 15 years, consider him a friend way back to his days in Concord and then some. So I think Matt Jenkins did coach a great game. I think he did coach extremely well throughout the week. I think that he kept that team together. Any lesser team would have rolled into that team at East Forsyth and gotten just rolled. But given the emotional roller coaster that team had been through, given the emotional week, I think Coach Jenkins, that entire staff ought to be commended because I watched every snap of that game. Granted, Cam was kind of giving me the play-by-play beforehand because I was on about a 20 or 40 second. That was an incredible defense. I don't want anybody to lose sight of the fact that East is just a phenomenal defense. And yes, Matt did. He's correct. They did just enough to get past that defense, but that's all that was required. But their defensive line just absolutely thoroughly dominated that game. And that was all coaching. I mean, they changed their fits, their schemes, everything. Everything they did just seemed to work. And I just got to give 3 thumbs up to Coach Jenkins because I think that entire staff rose to the challenge, and they're going to have another big one this Friday.
Absolutely.
I got something to say for you. And this is going to piggyback off of that comment that Grice typed in. Coaching does play a huge part in everything with players, and that applied to that Providence day and game and those players changing. And to have to deal with what they dealt with last week at Huff, it took a tremendous coaching job there to keep things in line. And like Chris said, go into East Forsyth, a game that a lot of people would get rolled in, and manage it. That struck me too when he said that. He had to have coached well to have come out of that game like that.
It had been his best coaching performance of his life.
It was impressive to put all that aside and get you guys ready. I mean, he's doing interviews every week, not just in Charlotte, but around the state and in Virginia as well. Chris, I want to flip it to the East. Rolesville, huge upset on Wake Forest. Rolesville's going back to the quarterfinals again. What do you think about that game? That surprised you?
Well, quite honestly, Langston, I didn't think that was an upset at all. If you go back to the previous, 5 or 6 times that Rolesville and Wake Forest have played one another, and let's not forget that is an enormous rivalry. Heck, that used to be Wake Forest-Rolesville high school before the split.
Yes.
Back in the regular season, that was a 2024 game that Wake Forest had to come back, barely won. Look back last year, Wake Forest won that game 34-27, went right down to the wire. The year before, Rolesville swept the series, including the 4th-round playoff win. You go back the year before that, and it was a double overtime 30-31 game and like a 26-20 game. I mean, those two teams have played phenomenal football games against one another really for about the past 4 or 5 years, with it pretty much going 50-50. I think Rolesville's won 3, Wake Forest has won 4, maybe something like that in their last 7 appearances. So I wasn't really surprised. And, Mikey Deepensqually, who I think is one of the most exciting players in all of high school football, he went up there and put on a show. Wake Forest got up to a 14-0 run. But, you've got Braden Atkinson, the quarterback, who I think is really special, threw 5 touchdown passes in that game and really put the Rams ahead. And look out, I think that they are probably my favorite to come out of the East right now, just based off what I've seen. Let's not forget, they absolutely thoroughly rolled Millbrook 35-6 earlier in the year. They're very familiar with New Bern. They beat them 69-49 last year in the playoffs. Rolesville started off the year slow. Remember, they had such high expectations last year. This year, Coach Martin Samick ends up leaving the team the first week of the season. Richard Shuping takes over, and he's a young coach. I think he has everything it takes to be a big-time coach in this state for many years to come. His dad was a great coach, but I think that, now that he's kind of gotten his legs under him, I think this Rolesville team, they're super talented. They look really good.
Wow, there it is from the guru. All right, Dale, we want to find out what your big 3 surprises were from the week that was.
Okay. So I was going to steal some time for something else, but I'm not going to. I had a Robin Hood I was going to put up. The first one that we have up there is West Charlotte. And as you've put there, it shows that the future is bright because of how they play Kings Mountain. So we know that West Charlotte, and there's no excuses, but West Charlotte was short a key position in that game.
Long snapper.
Yeah, exactly.
And they missed 2 extra points.
So that, and going for it at the 45, what was it, 4th and 5?
4th and 5. Sam has
so you could punt. If you could snap and punt, you put them deep.
Yeah.
So, but that aside, they played a phenomenal game, and we've seen West Charlotte, or at least I've seen West Charlotte 3 times out of the last 4 weeks, and to have seen how they've matured on offense, and how that team has matured. And that team has matured in a way of unity that you see it on good teams. And so I think there's a lot of good that West Charlotte has to look forward to, because I still believe Kings Mountain's the team that's going to take it all the way. They showed that it could be a little bit rough, but that's a fantastic thing. And you West Charlotte people need to get behind Sam for that. Are we undervaluing Grimsley? And I thought hard about this Friday night when I saw not just that they beat Independence, but they beat Independence. And I I don't think it's one of those things that Independence has got a hump to get over. That wasn't a getting over a hump.
I think
kind of lost
next year. I think they're not. I think they're ahead of schedule. I think they're next.
Well,
year.
I agree. But just how soundly they beat them and they beat Catholic, I still question because I'm picking against them this week.
I was just about to say that.
It's hard but we might be undervaluing them, and they can prove that to us.
Well, they seem to like us picking against them. They all come to me on Twitter every week when the picks come out. Right? When they wait till after the game's over, then they come to me and tell me
right.
we were wrong.
Exactly.
Little hindsight.
Hey, we're giving them locker room, material, bulletin board material.
Absolutely. But tell me about Salisbury and the Hornets, Dale.
Yeah. So again, another game because of what I've seen Burns do here in the last few weeks, especially with their defense. And I have a lot of respect for Salisbury, and I really think they have a good squad. But I did not think they would play that game that close with Burns, because Burns just really looked like they were on fire and going to roll all the way. That was a bit of a shocker to me. So, that's a fantastic game for Salisbury.
Well, Burns and Kings Mountain, a lot of times, and Chris, you can probably speak to this, a lot of times when you're on the way to a state championship, you have a game where you get tested, where it doesn't go well for you, but you win it. And then that kind of propels you. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of game that will propel Burns to be even better. And I've got to admit, I'm one of those that probably devalued Salisbury. You look at the coaching change, Coach Brian Henson moving on to become the AD. Now, Clayton Trivet, who I love to death, did a bang-up job at Central Davidson the past 2 or 3 years. Phenomenal coach. He has just done nothing short of amazing there at Salisbury. But, the talent, a little bit of a drop-off in the talent. But they – look at the running game, everything they did. They were just phenomenal. I went back and looked at that film, and they probably should have won that ball game.
Yeah, streaming I love streaming. We can go back and watch all these games after the fact. All right, Grice, it's time to find out who you and Sam picked for the Grice's Gems, the players of the week. And we got a special visit from a guy in Princeton that's having a phenomenal season.
All right, guys, we've got a special G&G edition here, a playoff edition of Grice's Gems. We had some guys this week that balled, and we had to definitely let you know about them as we went ahead and gave them the call. Let's start here in the Charlotte area. We've got Brody Barnhart from Providence Day. 5 catches, 93 yards, and 2 touchdowns in a big 55-13 win over Charlotte Christian in the Division I state championship game for the NCHSAA. He also on the defensive side, Griner. Hey, I know you love those two-way guys. He had 5 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 2 picks, and a fumble recovery. Griner, I was there actually at this game. With all of these stars that we talk about, he was the best one on the field, unquestionable, in this game. Talk about what you see here.
Well, defensively, I want to talk about that. He's very explosive on offense, and I thought that they did a great job putting him in the backfield, isolating him as one-on-one matchups. They did a great job game planning for him and getting him isolated on the matchup they wanted. But defensively, this guy's like a seeking missile. He comes flying down, inside out, inside hip, does not miss tackles, and makes big plays. I'm talking about, hey, ice bucket guy, we got one right here.
Definitely for sure. He had a phenomenal game here. All right, let's take it to the Raleigh area, and let's look at Cameron Richardson out of Rolesville. Again, big 42-28 upset of Wake Forest. Richardson had 11 tackles, including 4 for a loss and a sack. Again, we talked Rolesville had that big loss early to Eastern Side. He won 4 in a row and avenged that 24-20 loss to Wake Forest on October 21st. Again, big guy here making some big-time plays. Grind out. Love to get these defensive guys on. Talk about what you see with this guy right here.
Well, the first play you see how he strikes the guy with his hands. He has a great angle. He's an outside backer, so he's coming from outside in. He's been taught really, really well to be able to knife in and do certain things. So see that setting the edge? It's not necessarily we're trying to contain. He's setting the edge, and he's creating a great line for his linebackers to seek over. It's not like, hey, you just run inside me and contain. He's setting the edge and making the running back redirect. That's what you have to do in today's game. He does a great job of that.
Definitely. Again, big-time performance there. We know in the playoff victory, he was the reason, why they were able to get that victory. Let's go up to the Greensboro area. And Mitchell Summers out of Grimsley. 5'6", 150-pound sophomore. He ran 22 times for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns in a big 44-36 win over Independence on Friday. For the season, Mitchell Summers has 1,770 yards and 19 touchdowns on 197 carries, and is averaging a good 9 yards per attempt. Hey, we're going to see a lot of him going against that big-time Huff defense this week. Let's talk about his performance here for the seasons with these highlights here.
Hey, I tell you what, this guy right here might be hard to tackle in a phone booth. Watching him, he's got a little Darren Sproles to him the way he does. The moment's not too big for him. He's got deuce on the loose. I mean, it's going to be a tough guy to tackle going forward. I think Huff's got a tough one right here.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, he runs so hard. Again, he's 150, it says on the paper, but he runs like he's 200 pounds.
No, he does. He's really low to the ground. He's not like he's a skinny guy, Grice. You're exactly right. He's got a little muscle to him, but he's got that burst, and he can stop on a dime. Look at that. Low to the ground. It's like trying to tackle a daggone vacuum cleaner. Hugging the ground.
I like that. Hey, let's keep going forward. Let's head out to Andrews High School. We talked about them all week. Again, big 50-23 win over Murphy. Isaac Weaver ran for 318 yards on 14 carries. Also had a big 49-yard catch. Hey, you had four rushing and 1 receiving touchdowns for a total of 5 touchdowns in this game, Griner. Then he played on defense and intercepted a pass with a total of 430 all-purpose yards. We got a do-it-all guy. I love these smaller schools because those guys do it all, and this guy was a big reason why they had a big-time win over Murphy.
318 yards on 14 carries. Are you kidding me? I mean, like literally, like every time he touched the ball, it's to the crib. Like literally, almost every time.
Again, I love these explosive guys. Yeah, definitely. Oh my God.
Love it. I mean, look at that environment with the black lines too. You're talking about a great environment for playoff football. Look at that. That's beautiful. This guy was just locked in. He's like, we're wearing all black tonight. We got black lines. Give me the daggone rock. I'm gonna go for 3+.
Oh, yeah. Love it. I love it. All right. Now let's get to the call. Again, we've got a lot here. We're going to bring in our guy, Christian Paris, out of Princeton High School. Again, you guys might not be aware Princeton High School is between Smithfield, Selma, and Goldsboro. He's representing our eastern part of the state. We always tell y'all we're Murphy to Manio, Dare to Cherokee. We get everybody here. Christian, we're going to go ahead and read some of your stats, make sure they get to know who you are and what you're about. Again, he's 5'11", 180-pound senior. He's rushed for 3,198 yards. Again, top 20 all-time for public school running backs and 47 touchdowns. Got 53 total touchdowns. Again, now let's take it to Friday's 63-55 win over big-time Burlington Cummings. You ran 33 times for 495 yards. That is the third most ever, Christian, by an NCHSAA player. Additionally, those 7 rushing touchdowns tied for the second most in NCHSAA history. And added to even more, just in case you weren't done, you had 154 yards and kick returns for an all-purpose total of 649 total offensive yards. And take it even further, Christian, to here, because I know you're in it. You may not know the past 2 weeks, Christian, just two, you have had 896 yards and 12 touchdowns.
Are you kidding me?
This ain't playing Sisters of the Poor. This ain't playing, in the backyard. He's not playing two-hand touch against his little brother. He is playing against playoff-eligible teams and has had 900 yards and 12 touchdowns. Christian, we've got to start there. Like let's forget all this. We've got to start there. How have you felt these past 2 weeks? Again, you know the game plan. We know, and they know. That's even the thing. They're a playoff team. They know you're getting the ball, but you're still showing how incredible you are. How have you felt? How has the game plan been for you to have such a great 2 weeks?
It's my O-line. Once my O-line block for me, then I get free. I'm going. I'm scoring a touchdown.
I love it. Are you set up at the school right now? Are you set up at the school?
Yes, sir.
I love it. Like the dude eats football. No wonder his stats are so good. Look at that view in the back. I love it.
So talk about some of your preparation for, from week to week. I mean, especially as you get into the playoffs. I see you're at the school now. I mean, what's your mentality throughout the week to have these great performances?
We just practice and get the game plans on Monday and practice through the week and get to it on Friday and get to work.
No, hold on. You're a senior. So have you had that time where you're like, Coach, I need the ball. It's 4th and 2, 3rd and 4, one of those plays in a big-time game. This was a big-time high-scoring game. Are you that player? Or are you just like, look, whatever you need? Because I feel like you had a couple of those times where you're like, look, I got the ball here. I'm scoring. I'm getting in the box.
I just every chance I get, if I know I got it, then I'm going to tell the coach I got it.
Don't let everybody hey, guys that are watching, don't let this guy fool you. He came on early on our show. We talked a little bit. He literally was wearing glasses, a tie that was undone a little bit. And I'm telling you, the man is Superman. He just came in this video right now as Clark Kent. Don't let him fool you. The dude's got an S on his chest and he's above the rest.
He just trucked the referee. Did you see that? He trucked the referee to get out of the way. Christian, hey, I got to know, though, Christian. So, again, big time game here. You're playing Wallace Rose Hill coming up. Just wanted to check with you. What are your thoughts going into that game? And are you ready to take it another 30 times if need be?
Yes, sir. Just get the game plan on Monday, and we don't know what they got yet. So we practice for that, and we'll be ready.
I want some guarantees. Guarantee something. Tell me what you're gonna do this game. Tell me.
You got to guarantee you get in the box, right? You are getting in the box this week, right?
Yeah, run the ball.
Guaranteed. Boom, we got it. Hey, well, I'll tell you what. I'll give my Grice's Gems guarantee. You go out there and put another 5-6 touchdowns. I gotta have you in front of the school doing this next week. Is that another guarantee?
For
If
sure.
you get 5, you gonna agree to come on here, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
No.
Well, Christian, hey, we had to highlight you. You've been doing great things out there this playoffs. We thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. And as we always say, Christian, keep balling. All right, Grounded. Hey, that was a big time. I feel like we're raising the bar, which is crazy because the competition is getting bigger, but we keep finding great guys. I'm still stuck. He had 900 yards, 12 touchdowns in 2 weeks.
Coach, that's video game numbers. Like, I wish I had him on my fantasy team, and I didn't need nobody else because you win single-handedly with him.
Anybody else? Hey, but again, sorry guys, but if you want to be on Grice's Gems, with big time playoffs come big time performances, hit me up at Coach Jay Grice, at Langston Works Jr., at Observer Preps. Don't hit Coach Griner up because he's still, we're going through that playoff loss he had after a wonderful coaching performance, wonderful performance by his players. He'll get back to that, but he's still watching, and if he gets one, he'll send it over. But as we always say, Griner, if you ball what?
You're going to get the call.
Let's do it.
All I could think was he could go all the way. And I didn't say it quite.
Yeah. All righty, man.
Wow. What a ball.
I got to piggyback on what my man Sam Griner said. Those black lines, that brown field, anytime you're getting deep time playoff football up there at Hugh Hamilton Stadium at Andrews, really like that. But, hey, man, let's take a look at the 1A rankings for this week following the third round of the high school football playoffs. There you see them right there. No surprise. Tarboro, number 1. Andrews, 2 after that solid victory over Murphy. Mount Airy, Drone, Eastern Randolph, Northmore, Northampton, Thomasville, Murphy, Robbinsville. You got that trio of teams right there, Thomasville, Murphy, Robbinsville, whose season is complete. But, again, what tremendous football programs they are. Princeton is also kind of lurking down there as well. So Princeton has every opportunity – or Rosewood, I'm sorry. Rosewood, Coach Robert Britt's Rosewood Eagles has every opportunity to work themselves into the rankings this week. But let's take a look at those 1A football playoffs for this week. We're going to start with Eastern North Carolina. We'll let the brackets come up. And there you see that top game in Northampton County. Coach George Privet, the Jaguars. Remember, they were in the 2019 state championship game a few years ago. Always really good, 11-2. Really, they're 12-1. They had a forfeit that they didn't play. They played an ineligible kid. 50-some-0 to victory win over Rocky Mount Prep. So 12-1 for all intents and purposes, going against 11-1 Tarboro. I really like that Tarboro team. Remember, Tarboro is a team that's nothing but sophomore and freshmen. You got the sophomore running back Mason Satterfield. You got the freshman Cameron McDowell Moore. I mean, Coach Jeff Craddock's Tarboro Vikings. They've been dominant forever. I think they're going to continue being dominant for a few years. That big T. There you go, Coach Price. And then obviously that big game there, Rosewood at Northmore. Cam, I'm going to throw it up to you first. Tell me what you know about these 1A Eastern playoffs.
Yeah, man. I mean, I know Northmore, they're still undefeated. Had a little bit of a scare in the second round, only winning 13-12 against Pender. But, I mean, both of these squads are run heavy. I mean, you look at Rosewood, they've got 4 losses, but, I mean, still very run heavy. Neither team averages over 100 yards passing per game. It'll be interesting to see if that Northmore defense, they do have 4 shutouts on the year, can stop Rosewood. I tend to think that we'll be able to, given that Rosewood only averages around 20 to 21 points per game. So I think Northmore gets this win.
Great. So what do you think about that Northmore squad? I know you followed it. Coach Andrew Caruth did a bang-up job and is the head coach at Southern Alamance, moved down the road to Northmore. And like Cam said, big run-heavy system. But when you got guys like Jakari Gillis and Colby Ritchie and a bunch of other really strong guys, that's some good football. I've seen them on film. They're a really good team.
RPO, baby. RPO. It's in the end zone. Run people over. I mean, I think that Northmore squad showed that again, like you said, against Perkelman's. I mean, the usual suspects. I mean, you pointed out already Colby Ritchie and Jakari Gillis. Nathan Rogers, a junior, had 12 carries, 78 yards, and a touchdown as well. I mean, they were averaging 54 runs in that game, averaging 6.6 yards a carry. So I think that's going to be an interesting game. I mean, even don't sleep on Rosewood. I mean, Rosewood beating Hopton, and I think it's going to be the drastic change for a defensive coordinator going against Hopton, which we know Joe Salas, Coach Colthorpe there with that air raid system, throwing it all over the park. You go from that to a very pass-first team to then facing Northmore with their run-heavy RPO, run people over type mentality. It's going to be interesting if they can kind of adjust to that to make sure that they're ready, because those are two different extremes. And in the playoffs with not much time to prepare and Thanksgiving weekend, can your kids rise up to the challenge? So it's going to be definitely a big test for that Rosewood team. I'm excited to see it. I think one of my buddies actually is going to be there, so I'm excited to hear his account of it.
Yeah, you mentioned the run people over offense that Northmore has. Again, Coach Andrew Caruth. If you remember back last year, and I know we focused only on Grice's gyms a couple times last year, but Northmore had a trio of running backs last year. Justice Dorsett was the leader, who I swear Justice ran for about 10,000 yards last year. The names may have changed. You may have Ritchie and Gillis now, but those guys still seem to be putting out the same output against a pretty tough schedule of 1A teams. So we'll see how that goes. But let's shift our focus now to Western North Carolina. And Dale, this is a big game I know you've got your eyes on. Drone 12-1 going up to play Andrews 13-0. We just highlighted Andrews just a second ago in Grice's gym. I think that's going to be a big time game, one that I had a hard time picking myself.
Yeah, I had a hard time picking too. Both teams are playing well. Both teams put up a lot of points and put up good defense, but there are some things that kind of stand out, I think, with Andrews. What was that comment a minute ago about, running through teams? Andrews, 81% of their plays are run. 74% of their yards are run. They got 4,000 yards rushing. It's a phenomenal run game they've got there. 1,400 yards passing, though, and they've got a really good quarterback. You've heard me talking about QBRs, and I think QBR is important because it kind of tells you what a quarterback can do under pressure. Does he have high completion rates? Does he throw a lot of interceptions? And both of these teams have very good quarterbacks. And, Drone is a more balanced run-pass team. Nigel Dula, he got 3 touchdowns against Thomasville, a big 4th down and 3 to kind of seal that game. So they look like a real good challenge to Andrews, but Andrews, I picked Andrews, and I think that's because they've got look like they got a little bit more power, and running the ball that much and being as successful as they are at it, that really shortens the clock and shortens that game for the other team. So you got to make your possessions count.
Yeah, and the other big game is Mount Airy over at Eastern Randolph. I really liked this Eastern Randolph team. They struggled with Robbinsville, which I think added a little bit more credence into just what I thought about Andrews, just how strong that Robbinsville team, Color Adams, they put up a tremendous effort against Eastern Randolph. Coach Burton Cates' team has Everard Cassidy, who just seems to run over teams, put touchdowns in the air. So that's going to be a phenomenal game, that Mount Airy Eastern Randolph game Friday night. Ken, you got anything to add in this 1A West?
As far as the Eastern Randolph game, not too much. I think Eastern Randolph gets the job done there. It will be interesting to see. We're talking about 4 games here that each team seems to have similar play styles. They like to run the ball a lot. I picked Drone. I'm not sure if anyone else did. I like Drone's performance so far in the playoffs. I just think, they might pull off that upset.
How big a game is it, though, to have a Mount Airy team come into you in a semifinal? This is like a regional. That's like a regional final matchup. That would be a big win. I pick Eastern Randolph, but that's a big win to beat them still.
Yeah, I agree. And to be quite honest, I don't know that it'd be an upset if Drone or Andrews won. I think that's a big time game. Either team, I just think these are 2 phenomenal teams, as I feel like with Eastern Randolph and Mount Airy. Grice, I know you got a little bit on Mount Airy. What do you see in the Granite Bears?
Yeah, I think that they've been phenomenal. I think the big key for me is on defense. I mean, they've given up 7 points so far this playoffs. 7. And I mean, you look, they played a North Rowan team. They played some other guys. I think that were decent. That I think should be doing more. But that Mount Airy team's defense has really been dominant so far this playoffs. They really haven't had that rugged and rougher edge that Eastern Randolph's had with the Robbinsville and with some of the tougher opponents they faced. So that key is always there at this stage of the playoffs in some of the lower divisions. Like when you face a team that is that quality, that is going to put up some points, how do you handle getting punched in the mouth, in the mouth and tasting your own blood for lack of a better term there. So can they step up? And I think that's going to be that key when they get that first, that first strike from Eastern Randolph. Can they keep it together and keep on that dominant fashion that they have, or are they going to struggle there and lead to the end of their season? So I'm excited to see early in that game what the score looks like and how Mount Airy is able to respond.
Very solid insight, gentlemen. I appreciate it. 1A, that puts a bow on them. I think we're going to see a great cast of games. 1A football is always phenomenal. It's going to get even better. But, hey, let's shift our focus and take a look at the 2A football playoffs. Again, moving into the 4th round Friday night, Thanksgiving Day football. All these teams, every coach, back when I coached, when you coach Christ, everybody wants to be coaching Thanksgiving. So, there's going to be some phenomenal practices and walkthroughs on Thursday morning. Up there, you see them right there. Number 1, the Burns Bulldogs escaping that scare from the Salisbury Hornets. So coming in at number 1, Monroe after that big victory over East Surrey. Coming in number 2, East Duplin 3, Reidsville, Maiden, Wallace Rose Hill, Princeton. And there you see 3 teams or 2 teams that are still not in it. East Surrey still, their season's over. But tip your cap to everybody up at in Pilot Mountain for the seasons they had. Coach Trent Lohman, Folger Boaz, phenomenal year for the Cardinals. So they'll be in the final top 10 rankings. Whiteville, they're still playing. And then there you see it right there. I slept on them a little bit throughout the year, but, Salisbury Hornets is going to be in the final top 10 of the year. So tip your cap to them. Any surprises, gentlemen?
No, I think, it's one of those things like once, we got a wind of Jamaica Wells, and the phenomenal talent that he is, I think even at the 2A level, even for these big time playoff teams, when you have that guy, and he's been a guy all season, that can kind of keep you around in games, and Guru, I know that you pay attention and know these teams very well. And sometimes I think that guy, will kind of supersede some of the, the other insight we have where you just give that guy the ball and have him make a play. So I think kudos to them for recognizing that. And I think he was good enough, of course, to keep that game close against Burns.
All right. Let's take a look at the 2A playoffs for this Friday night. We're going to take a look at the East again. So let's wait for the bracket to come up. Some big games are coming in Eastern North Carolina. Cam, I know one that you've looked at, Wallace Rose Hill, they're 11-2, going over to take on Princeton. We've talked a lot about them. Then, of course, the bottom half of the bracket, you see Whiteville 12-1. Coach J.P. Price and that entire team, they just continue to look good as these playoffs progress. Escaped a 28-27 victory over Clinton Friday night. They're going to travel down to Beulahville to take on East Duplin. You want to talk about all the family ties in that game. Coach Price, going against Coach Holly, the ties they both have with Wallace Rose Hill. There is a lot of family ties in that game right there. It's going to be big time football. But we'll start at the top one. Grice, I'll let you, or Cam, I'm going to let you go first, and then we'll shift our focus to Grice. But what do we see in that Wallace Rose Hill Princeton game?
Yeah, Grice kind of stole a lot of the stuff that I had prepared for this game. But we look at Christian Paris, who we just had on Grice's Gems. Obviously we mentioned the 53 touchdowns, 47 rushing touchdowns, but he's the 24th player in state history to go for 3,000 plus on the ground. First in the nation actually in total touchdowns on the year, and he's only 7 touchdowns away from becoming just the 8th non-quarterback to have over 100 touchdowns in his career. So, the key for Wallace Rose Hill is simple, really. If you stop Christian Paris, which isn't an easy task by any means, I think they can win the game. My 2A bracket that I filled out still looking pretty good, so I won't pick against Wallace Rose Hill just yet. They have Irving Brown, who's ran for over 1,500 yards this season. So, it's a game, again, the battle of the Bulldogs, but simple, run-heavy offenses. It'll be very interesting to see who can, pull this one out.
Grice, I'm going to go to you here quickly, but one thing I did want to pull out, and I kind of mentioned Coach J.P. Price, the son of Joey Price. You got Battle Holly, obviously, the son of the legendary Coach Jack Holly. Coach Price coached under the tutelage of Holly. You've got Princeton right there. Coach J.K. Gaster's son, Travis. You got Whiteville again. Look at the tutelage of two of the absolute best 1A football coaches in the history of the state, of the Jack Gasters and the Battle Hollies, going head-to-head in all four of these big-time teams in Eastern North Carolina. I mean, those of us who grew up in the coaching ranks, I mean, that's a who's who of coaching family trees right there going at it, Coach.
You're 100% correct. I mean, I love like how you're able to kind of tie this all together with a lot of the history. I mean, we always know you and Dale are the historians here. I think the game, we talk about with Wallace Rose Hill to Princeton. All year I've said it. I've pointed to Wallace Rose Hill scheduling Leesville Road and putting them on that schedule, getting ready for these big time games. We look at Princeton with the Christian Paris. I think the biggest thing for me is looking at that box score, going back to that Leesville Road game. You look at a DJ Scott for Leesville Road. Christian Paris, I think, is a dang good running back. DJ Scott is probably the last big time, major running back they've faced, and they were able to hold him under 100 yards. So I think that, Wallace Rose Hill kind of comes with that same level of intensity here, which I feel they will. I think they could be up for the challenge. I mean, we know Christian Paris, again, is going to put up his stats. He's going to get his numbers, and I'm not saying they'll hold him to under 100, but even if, with the way they utilize him, holding him under 175, 180 yards might be a win for what he's done these past few weeks. So it's going to be a very good game, but I think that battle of the defense against Christian Paris is going to be everything here.
I agree. I think it's incredible. Cam, give a kudos to you for bringing some killer stats to the table tonight. Great job to both of you men in the East. Dale, we're going to shift our focus now to Western North Carolina. Again, big slate of 2A games Friday night. Maiden 12-1, had that close victory over Bunker Hill Friday. Arch rival Bunker Hill, by the way, going up to Reidsville to take on Coach Jimmy Teague's Reidsville Rams, the football capital of North Carolina. Coach Teague and his teams just continue to win. He's going to be pushing 500 coaching wins before long at the clip that they've been winning. And then look at the bottom half, obviously Monroe with that huge 28-23 victory over East Surrey, traveling to Burns, who, by the way, had to escape as well. So, Dale, I'm going to give you the floor.
Okay. Well, this is a big game, the Monroe traveling over to Burns. I picked this way back at the beginning of the playoffs that these two would meet. And by the way, look at all the brackets here. What great games we've had. I think the playoffs have been wonderful this year. But this is a game that features both two excellent quarterbacks, and Robinson over at Monroe and Monty over at Burns. Both of them, again, high QBRs. Both of them 70% plus in completions, and both of them each only has 3 interceptions on the year. So if things get critical in the game, you look at, as Gary was saying it, how do you pick winners in close games? Who has the best quarterback? And, well, both of these teams have great quarterbacks. They're both very balanced on offense. They both run approximately a 60-40 split in plays and in yards from run to pass. This is going to be a phenomenal game, Chris. One other stat I wanted to throw out that I think is important, because when I think about these two teams, one of the things I've been putting a lot on is Burns and Burns' defense. And Burns got 24 sacks on the season. Listen to these stats. So Monroe's got 20 sacks on the season. Monroe's got they've got 113 tackles for loss. Burns has got 89. And then interceptions, which could be big in this game. Monroe, again, has a 19-9 advantage. Monroe's not a pushover in this game. I'm still behind Burns, but boy, is this going to be a ball game, I think. I don't think this is going to be one of those Shelby encounters for Burns. This is going to be more like what they encountered this past week.
Coach Christ, I know that you're a 336 guy. We're going to shift our focus back up again to the football capital of North Carolina, about 25 miles up Highway 29 north of Greensboro. And that should be an offensive showcase in that game. You got the quarterback the quarterback duo to Wesley Thompson to Chris Culliver for Maiden. You've got Al Lee, who just seems to put up big numbers for Reidsville, and we've seen Jimmy Teague's Reidsville teams. They almost kind of look like those Cummings teams of the 90s, the way they distribute the ball to a lot of different receivers. I think that has the makings of a classic game.
Oh, it does. And I think for me, the key is going to be Maiden's offense against Reidsville's defense. And I mean, you go back and look at that Chase game, 30-0, I think it was, just dominant game where it's 24-0 at halftime. Chase couldn't get anything going. Tavion Durismo, who was, again, as I always point out, the year before the interception master, this year, going to receiver. I mean, he was able to get 6-7 catches, but none of any major consequence. And they were able to limit him and not really have him be effective in that game. They're going to have to do a lot more than that to stop Chris Culliver and Wesley Thompson. Again, that's a large part of their offense. And while they were able to run the ball effectively, we all know that ball is going to Chris Culliver in some way, shape, or form. So that's going to need to be item one on their prep this week to make sure that they're aware of where Chris Culliver is, because they know Wesley Thompson is going to get him the ball. And I think Culliver was maybe 176 and 2, I think it was, in that Bunker Hill game. So he's been able to do this all year against every single team he's been able to face. Can they be the one team to stop them? And, I love, Reidsville having that opportunity. And I think, they had I think it was the loss last year to Shelby that prevented them from making the state championship game. Shelby's not there. This is a great replacement, though, that they're going to need to get over this hurdle in order for them to be able to kind of execute what they want to and reach their goals.
Bryce, if I'm not mistaken, Culliver leads the team in interceptions as well.
Yes, he does.
He's strong on both sides of the ball.
They'll do. Hey, one thing about doing these Mr. Football things, Culliver was one of the few that was sending me his stats directly every week. So I'm well aware of what he was doing.
What a ball player he is. Yeah,
definitely. Carolina saw it too.
All right, man. Hey, that puts a bow on 2A action. Again, I love 2A football because it's just some of the great little small towns. And Grice knows I love those small towns in football. Nothing better than a small town that closes up shop for football on a Friday night. Getting into a little bit bigger cities here with the 3A. Again, some big-time action. There you see right there Kings Mountain holding on to that tough game over West Charlotte. They stay number 1, 71st right there, number 2. South Point comes in number 3. Northern Nash, East Lincoln, Terry Sanford, Crest, West Charlotte, Eastern Guilford, and Triton. Triton sneaking in there. They had that big victory over Jacksonville on Friday. Let's go ahead and just move right into the big-time game. So we'll just get it all talking in at one time. We'll put the graphic up here. We'll start in Eastern North Carolina. I know we've got the big one of 71st, 11-2, traveling over down Rayford Road. I know that area well, coaching at Douglas Byrd. I've had big-time rivalry games with both of these teams. I remember very well that state championship game in 08 against 71st. Great football there in the 910 region of North Carolina. And then again, Triton 8-5. That program just phenomenal year. Coach Ben Penny, David Weathersby, all those guys over there at Triton. Hang my hat out to them in Hardin County. Phenomenal year. Heading up to take on Coach Andrew Ferris's Northern Nash team, 13-0. They really flexed a little bit more muscle this week. I like them a lot. But Cam, I'm going to bring it to you here in my old neck of the woods. I spent most of my adult life down there in Fayetteville. That's a big-time game out there on Rayford Road.
Yeah, I mean, this game's, compelling in my opinion. You got Sanford, who averages about 41 points a game. 71st, 39.9 to be exact. It's hard to pick against 71st in this one. I mean, Coach McLaurin will have his squad ready to go. They're perfect 13-0, obviously, coming off a pretty resounding 40-8 victory last week. It's a battle of two different styles. I think one of the first games we've talked about where there are two different styles of offenses here. Sanford throws the ball for about 240 a game, while 71st is the RPO, as Grice likes to say, the run people over. There we go, excuse me. So, I mean, it's two different styles, but, I mean, I still think it's hard to pick against 71st in this game.
I agree, although I've coached in that town and I know that football a lot, and I'm not going to bet against Terry Sanford, but I do think that 71st is just a little bit better, but you just never go know in playoff football, especially, school's out on Friday, walkthroughs. You just never know which team's going to show up. Hey, before I go to the West, Grice, I am going to throw it to you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one thing, in the thing that I did earlier about the surprises, I'd actually had 5 down, and Sanford and Triton were 2 of them. Sanford is a big surprise for where they're at. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
But I do have a coaching question for you, Grice. You know, it takes me back to my years coaching. Granted, it's been over a decade now, so it's hard for me to even call myself a coach anymore. But, you know, I remember these big games. I was fortunate enough to coach a few Thanksgiving Day weekend games. Northern Nash, 13-0. You know, you've cruised in these games. You've been able to rest some players. And you got a Triton team who's kind of been those cardiac cats. You know, they've been winning overtime games, 2-3-point games week after week after week to survive and advance. They weren't supposed to make it this far. When you're coaching a team like Northern Nash, who you've been wrapping up business, shutting out teams, doing what you need to do, but yet you see a hot, dangerous, explosive team getting hot at the right time, how does that scare you as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think this, you know, you kind of level set with everybody and really just kind of set that standard of no matter the records. I mean, we put the record up here for fun, but there's no need to put the record up here because that team that lost those 5 games isn't here anymore. That team is, you know, it's non-existent. So you really can only look at a team for what they are in these past 3 to 4 weeks. And a lot of times you never know. I mean, it could be injuries. You point out one point of the ineligibility of a kid with one team. You know, it could be a lot of things early in the season. They may not know who they were to where that could have been who that team was. I mean, you're focusing and a lot of your analysis is on this playoff team that's been executing at a high level because that's the team you're going to face. If you're Northern Nash, I mean, you understand your job and what you're here to do. And you kind of come with that mindset. I mean, I think that's really the big thing. You know, if you're, you know, in practice, you got to put your guys in situational standpoints where they need to be successful. For example, we would always do a 2-minute drill at least once a week. You know, we would really harp on our guys. And I mean, I'd almost be downright ballistic with guys for making mistakes and just getting them to understand and say, all right, we need this. It's going to come a time in the game where, you know, 2-minute drills aren't just a big, you know, Chinese fire drill for the sake of the analogy. 2-minute drills are successfully coordinated, practiced situations that guys should be ready for. And treating this situation, no matter what, you know, football is about situations. Guys are ready and able to enact and do damage against a team like this, you're good to go. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing is level setting, that everybody's good, that you're ready to go out here and execute and do what you do successful, no matter who the opponent is. And I think you're all right.
All right. Hey, before we go to the 3A West, I want to go and look at the video that our own coach Sam Griner did with his Frontline Warrior featuring Kings Mountain's A.J. Richardson, Kings Mountain. I think it's some great video. Let's check it out first.
Another Frontline edition, playoff style. And this one's going to be a tough one to talk about because it was someone we went against this past game, A.J. Richardson from Kings Mountain High School. And how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How about you, Coach?
Doing pretty good. Now, I'm going to do a little backstory. You know, before the game's happening, this Warrior, you know, 6'2", 235, looks like he's 250 in pads. It's easy. Like, is across our 50-yard line. And he comes across a little bit, and he's just staring me down. And a lot of kids, you know, I got a little bit of intimidation factor. I'm not going to lie. I got a little soul to me. And this dude's just ice cold, you know, in his veins, just staring me down. I'm like, dude, get on your side of the 50. And he keeps staring at me. I'm like, okay, we're going to get you some. Well, this guy balled out. This man does not just play inside linebacker. This guy plays D-line. He could probably play sniffer back on the offense as well. This guy is a hard-hitting warrior. I'm telling you, talk a little bit about your game, man. What do you think about when you play? Did you have bad intentions like Mike Tyson?
Oh, at all times. I feel like that's the only way to play the game. It's hard-nosed football. That's the only way to play, you know. I feel like I'm a little bit of a throwback player, you know, straight downhill. I look to disrupt all plays and complete dominance over the game.
Boy, you do that, man. And I'm just saying, there's something about confidence that I love to see in high school kids. You have that. Like, when you looked at me, like, I believed that. I'm like, that's the type of guy I'd go to war with. If I had to go somewhere in the foxhole, man, I'm choosing you. And I know you're on the other team, but I love the intensity you play with. And I think the way that you played the game, it took a toll on us. Like, I think we jumped out on you guys, but your hard-hitting ability, you were laying the wood on us. And I think it took a toll on us later in the game. It really did.
Could you repeat that again, Coach?
I said, you were laying the wood on us in the game, and it took a toll on us. I think it affected us. Every time we got in the hole, you were just whack, whack. I mean, just hitting us hard.
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like you got to capitalize on, it was a couple of plays where I missed, and I had to capitalize on, and my teammates corrected me, and he told me you got to capitalize on those plays. So I did it for my team, and, I just had to capitalize on those plays in a big-time moment. We were down, so we had to step up and play ball.
No, you did. I mean, the guy you went against at running back, we have two really good ones. I think you did a great job of containing him. Like I said, he told me after the game he ain't been hit as hard as he did by someone like yourself. And, that's the reason why you're on the show, the Frontline Warrior. It's about moving people against their own will. I think you do that. You do it the right way. You put your hand in the dirt. If they say come off and you're playing middle linebacker, you're doing that as well. But the factor in the game of your intensity, it was beautiful to watch, even though you're on the other side, man. And I appreciate it. Even though we had our own words, I love it, man. I respect the heck out of you, and I hope you make a great decision going to college. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Go get you a ring this earn. All right?
Yes, sir. I got you.
All right. If you want to be on the next Frontline Warrior edition, playoff Thanksgiving special, please hit me up on Coach Sam Griner. We would love to have you on the Talking Preps next Frontline Warrior. Look forward to it. You can also hit up at Charlotte Preps on Twitter or Instagram.
All right, gentlemen, let's hit it again with the 3A West. Two big games. We've seen both these teams play some nice games this past Friday night. But there you see the top game, East Lincoln 13-0 going to face 13-0 Kings Mountain over at John Gamble Stadium in Kings Mountain. What a phenomenal game that we saw Kings Mountain play to survive and advance against Coach Sam Griner's West Charlotte team. I watched the end of that game. I caught a feed on Twitter. I thought that was some great football. What a good-looking game. And then there you see that bottom team. I kind of anticipated Eastern Guilford going up there to West Henderson. Wasn't surprised at all with the outcome to see Eastern Guilford advance, going down to Belmont to take on the Red Raiders at South Point. I watched the tail end as well of that South Point Crest game a week ago. Phenomenal football. A little controversy there at the end. It's got a coach toss, had what looked to be an iffy call, but still a tremendous one-point ball game. We're going to start in the West. Who do we have going first? Dale, I think we're going to talk Eastern Guilford South Point.
Okay. South Point number 2. I don't like to talk bad about teams. But looking at this thing on paper, this is a big wall for Eastern Guilford to have to go through. You got one of the best run teams in the state. And that's what they do. They run. It's a high percentage part of their game. I looked at the head-to-head the common opponent, Dudley, that the two had to try to see what things might look like. And I didn't just look at the score because Dudley kind of laid the wood on Eastern Guilford. And, of course, South Point had that big high-scoring 74-41 win. The big thing about that game, though, was what each team was able to do against Dudley and what Dudley was able to do against them. And I just see a hard time for them to stop Blee. And people out there remember that name. Grice had him on, was it last week, Grice? He was one of your gyms. The kid's a freshman, great runner. He can throw the ball too, but they don't have to throw. They throw very little. So I don't know what more to say, Chris. This is just I looked at power ratings. It's like a 37.5 versus 11.9. Yeah. Number 2 versus number 25. This is a tough game.
Yeah. Tony Aguilar, since he took over at Eastern Guilford, he was a long time lieutenant on the staffs over at Eastern Randolph or Eastern Alamance coming up under John Kirby. So Tony knows some good football. Great coach, been doing it 20 plus years. He has done a phenomenal job in kind of resurrecting that Eastern program the last couple of years. I think that they're going to put forth a good effort, but I kind of agree with you. In my research last week, I even made the comment last week that I thought either Crest or South Point was the other two teams in the East or in the West that I thought had a chance to win the whole 3A. And I do think that they're going to have their hands full against that South Point team. Now, Coach Grice, I know you know some of these teams as well, and you know a lot of those players, and you probably have your own thoughts on this East Lincoln Kings Mountain game as well. So I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, first I'll say I think Dale's spot on with that Eastern Guilford South Point game. I mean, you look at, South Point and the way they're able to run the football, and then you go back and Dale did I thought it was a great job of pointing out the Dudley game, which, you talk about 500 yards of total offense put up on that Eastern Guilford defense. They're going to have a tough task, and they're going to need to really answer the bell there in order to be successful. So I think that'll be the key to look for there. Talking about this East Lincoln and Kings Mountain game, I mean, I think East Lincoln, you talk about, such a great year by that East Lincoln program. Big thing there is just you talk about the strength of schedule and that difference, and just really having to now take a huge step up in competition, not just, playing these games, teams they play, but also going to John Gamble Stadium. I've been there in a scrimmage scenario. That's even a tough task there without all of those, those fans, as I'm sure Sam can attest to. But East Lincoln's really going to have to go in there and start off. Really, I think you take the Sam Griner approach to how that West Charlotte team came in there. I mean, they can go in there and show their aggression, show that they belong here and are willing to really, match that physicality. They've got a shot. They haven't experienced that, so that's going to be, that's one of those games, Guru, for that first drive for each team is going to tell you, I think, a lot about how East Lincoln's going to answer the bell. So I'm excited to see that. I think that their defense really is going to have to step up and really attack there. And I've already heard some of the stuff of the East Lincoln coach of, trying to get a hostile environment there from his fan base. And I like that. And I think that's what football is about. But ultimately, it's going to come to those players on the field. And if they're able to match that intensity, I think they'll be successful. But, I mean, Griner can talk about, Little John Jeffrey.
I'm going to ask him. We got Griner on. And, hey, Griner, we got you on the show. Congratulations on that big game Friday night. I know you guys came up short, but I watched the end of it. That was phenomenal football coaching on y'all's part. But, hey, tell us, how tough is it going to be for an East Lincoln team or any team for that matter to go in down there at John Gamble Stadium and take on that Kings Mountain team? Because that's a great place for football.
No, it's a beautiful place. They're top notch. I love the environment there. Even we're going against it. They're very, very loving before the game, but it's a hostile when the game's going on. And when you leave, they're loving you up again and sending you on your way. But it's a special place to play football. There's no doubt about that. The physicality that team plays with is really, really top notch. I think the benefit of the schedule that we played, we were able to play at a different speed early on, but once they realized the speed of the game that we were trying to bring, they were able to match it and overcome it. And I'm curious. I watched East Lincoln on film. I got some friends over there as well. I watched a lot of their film. I don't know if they've played the competition the Kings Mountain has played yet, and that's going to be the key factor early on. I think East Lincoln's defense has got some big-time guys. They're going to big-time colleges. Can they match that intensity that what Kings Mountain is going to bring? And if they can and make it a tight game early, then East Lincoln can maybe overcome them late like Kings Mountain did to us. These are two really good programs, but Kings Mountain, I'm telling you, they're tough out. They're the team to beat in the West and overall in this whole deal right now, no doubt.
Yeah. Hey, I want to get off script for a second, Langston. Don't be mad at me. I just want to ask one crazy question just to get it off my mind. You went against that Kings Mountain team. You've coached against some of the best teams in Charlotte this year. Butler, obviously, the trio of Chambers and Huff and Mallard Creek. Could that Kings Mountain team play with some of the big dogs in Charlotte?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. They can definitely play with it. I think the one team they'd have a hard time with would be a Huff-type team just because their defense, a Huff, is really, really good. Kings Mountain can play. It's the fact that, Cleveland County football is, bar none, one of the best there is. The Charlotte football plays at just a tightly different, a little bit bigger speed at one point, but Kings Mountain has that capability. Once they're able to feel that speed, they can overcome it because those dudes are dogs. Like 15, the guy that we did for Frontline Warrior this past week, I'm trying to tell you right now, I'll go in the foxhole with that guy any day of the week. That sucker is tough as nails. And it's like they breed Cleveland football. That football that they play there is just different. They love it. You can almost feel it coming out of their pores that they love and breathe football. And once they're able to match some type of capability, like say they were going against Charlotte teams left in and left out, I think by the time the second half's coming around, they can beat any team. There ain't no doubt about it because they overcome it with the passion that they play with and their knowledge and their adjustment ability is really good at Kings Mountain.
Wow. That is what makes Talking Preps the best show in North Carolina, folks. Appreciate
Chris?
that, Coach Sam Griner.
Yeah. I typed in me, please, because I saw a couple of comments get thrown up. I guess Langston threw up by some Kings Mountain fans. My comment about missing a player, and I understand Kings Mountain may be missing players, and I picked Kings Mountain to win this game. I love Sam. Sam knows that. Mm-hmm. And I picked Kings Mountain to win the 3A. I have since the very first week. And regardless of what was there, they did have a situation that if they didn't have that situation, that game could have gone differently. Sam hadn't made an excuse about it, and I'm not making an excuse about it either. It's just a fact. I think Kings Mountain's a great team. I'm glad you support your team. And I'm not making an excuse. Everybody's missing players. But West Charlotte did a phenomenal job. And Sam, I don't know if you heard what I had to say, but you guys have done a phenomenal job. And to have made it this far in the playoffs and to play Kings Mountain, the team that I think is the best team in 3A. And I agree with you. I think they can play with the top teams. I've seen them in person. Mm-hmm. That's a stout team. And it's a testament also, I did want to say this, to your schedule of playing Huff, Mallard Creek, and Chambers, and seeing those three tough defenses, and then seeing another one that's on par with them didn't shock your guys when you were seeing it. So
no doubt.
There's a testament to that. Go Kings Mountain. I'm a fan.
No doubt. I love everything about them. Really do.
I think we all
right. Coach Craig Lloyd's first class. But hey, let's take a look at 4A now. 3 down, 1 to go. 4A finishing up big here on Talking Preps North Carolina tonight. Look at the rankings. Hey, new number 1. We'll find out if they're legit or not. They got a big game this week. Number 1 versus number 2. Grimsley, Huff going at it head-to-head. There you see number 3, Weddington. Number 4, New Bern, Millbrook, AC Reynolds, Hillside. Easterside still holding in there, as is Independence. Their season's over. And then there you got Rolesville, who snuck in. Don't forget, Rolesville just dominated Millbrook earlier in the year. So, again, we talked about it at Sam. I know you're late to the show, but I think that Rolesville team, they're on a roll in the 4A East. We'll see how they shake out this week. But, man, let's talk about some 4A football. We're going to start with the East. We'll just get right to it. Millbrook, 12-1. Big-time win last week for Millbrook, going to take on Hillside. 13-0. That Hillside team, remember the same Hillside team? They beat Dudley. They beat everybody. You know, they just keep winning. I know Alex Bass has been big on that team all year. Alex, our contrarian, is not here tonight. Saw his pictures up at Notre Dame. He's having a great time. We miss you and your Iron Preston, Alex. And then there you see Rolesville 10-3, taking on New Bern 13-0. New Bern escaped 38-30 against Jordan last week. They had 299 yards rushing, but could barely pass the ball, had 51 yards passing. That's going to be tested this week against Rolesville. Cam, we're going to come to you first to talk about that big Rolesville game.
Yeah, I mean, Rolesville, obviously, you mentioned earlier, coming off an upset over Wake Forest, sending them to the fourth round.
It ain't an upset.
Well, okay, it's not an upset. It's an upset based on seeding. But anyway, we've discussed seeding and how that's worked before. But anywho, I mean, they've advanced to the fourth round of the playoffs for the 4th straight year now. I mean, New Bern's still playing well, though. I mean, you mentioned the close game they played with Jordan. I mean, no disrespect to Jordan. I mean, they've had, an upset based on seeding every week so far until they finally lost. But, you know, I kind of do. I mean, their running back, Aaron Herring, goes for about 122 a game. So, I mean, it's kind of passing versus running again. But I do want to get your insight, Guru. I mean, you obviously really high on this Rolesville team.
Well, Rolesville's been good for about 4 years. You got to remember, Coach Samick went over. They went to the state championship year 1 in the COVID-shortened year. Obviously, they got hammered pretty tough against then Vance team. Obviously, became Chambers. That was the last game of Vance High School. But that Rolesville team's been really good. But, you know, I want to go back to something that not even myself, but Jack Leary brought out about the New Bern team several weeks ago when he came on here. And, you know, he really dug into some stats, and you could tell that he was a little waning on New Bern. And he is an Eastern North Carolina guy, son of a coach, good athlete in his own right. And you know, he talked about New Bern's deficiencies and being unable to pass. And it's almost like he projected the next 2 weeks of the playoffs, because those played out week after week after week. And then all of a sudden you get a team in Rolesville who's got Atkinson, who can just throw the ball all over the field, through 5 touchdowns last week in their victory over Wake Forest. I just think that that's a recipe for danger for Coach Torrey Noel and the Bears.
And one thing I've said all year is, New Bern's strength of schedule is really kind of, I don't want to say scared me, but I mean, it's been a point of concern because they're always ranked in the top 5 in 4A, but I mean, their strength of schedule is super weak.
I disagree, because they went out and played some good teams. They went up and played big-time programs out of Norfolk, Virginia. You look at Havelock, Greenville, Rose, even D.H. Conley. Those are really, really good football teams, and they all kind of beat up on one another. But I think that's a tougher conference than what you think.
I think even the Maury Commodores up in Virginia, as Guru alluded to, have been in the state championship. I mean, again, that to me, Maury would be comparative to a Chambers up in Norfolk.
Yes.
I mean, very similar vibe, very similar ethos, I guess it would be kind of the way to say, just of how they are, and a physical team, and they still were able to be effective running the ball. I think, again, Rolesville, we know about the talent. We've talked about the guys, and I can't believe that we've talked about Rolesville. No one has said the word Noah Rogers at all on this entire.
That's receiver in North Carolina.
A 5-star guy. I mean, you could argue is one of the a little more underutilized than others, but you could argue he's the best receiver by rankings. He's the best receiver in this state. And I think it's a guy that I think could show up big here. I mean, it's another game we're gonna have to see. I mean, we haven't seen, Roseville hasn't seen, to me, a back like Aaron Herring. I mean, they haven't seen a rushing attack. They've got to go to New Bern to deal with that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with it. I mean, a guy like Tamarcus Cooley and some of those guys on the defensive end, they're great when you're facing a team like Millbrook, who's very pass forward, who's going to get the ball to different guys. But when you're lining up and running through someone's face 40 times, how are you going to handle that? I think, and Griner, is a big, guy that loves to run the ball first. I mean, that's the heat check. I think Roseville has the talent. And we could argue they have the edge, but it's when talent meets just grind, hard work, just in your face level of attitude. I mean, are they going to be able to stop that when they're just going to run the ball and just run it down your throat? Noah Rogers is great, but not when he's holding his helmet, chanting defense 3 times, and clapping his hands. So can New Bern really, deal with time of possession? Can they really be aggressive and keep them off the field? I think that's going to be, the conversation there when it comes to that game. And the Millbrook and Hillside game, I think, is going to be, fantastic. I mean, I think, Hillside's defense, and really, can they get after Mason Fortune and really keep him under works? I mean, they played Pine Forest, and they have nowhere near the passing attack, but you're talking 5-6, sacks there. Quarterback threw for less than 40 yards passing. I mean, that Hillside, defensive line and just defense as a whole, are they up to the challenge to get Mason Fortune uncomfortable and really, pay attention to those receivers and get that passing attack off? So, I mean, it's 2 phenomenal games on the east side.
All right, Cam, finish it up.
Yeah, I mean, since I'm kind of replacing Alex on the eastern side of things tonight, if Millbrook can beat a Nick Drew defense, then I think they can beat a Hillside defense. I'm going to pick Millbrook in this one. Mason Fortune's going to have a big game.
I don't know. I'm 50-50 on that game. I've looked at the film. Coach Ray Harrison, that Hillside team, they are legit. I know I've probably undervalued them a little bit throughout the year. They got some dogs, as I like to say. I think that's going to be a tough game. I don't know. I think I'm leaning Hillside, but we'll see. That's going to be a tough one. But, hey, let's go ahead and move to the West. But before we dig into the West, I know that we have got a interview with Coach Andy Capone of Weddington. They had that huge victory last week. They just continue to win. Heck, what are we talking about with Weddington? Let's take a look at this video before we go to 4A.
We had to bring a guy again that has great pedigree, Griner. We talk about him all the time. It's been weirdly quiet this year around them, and that's head coach from Weddington High School, Andy Capone. Full disclosure, of course, being a coach at Cox Mill, we knew our side of the bracket was the side to be on, of course. And you guys have really stepped up to that task, really just kind of dismantling every team you guys have seen. Can you talk about how your team has played and how you feel you are at this point in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think we're playing good football right now, and I know what people have said, and I read the message boards. Sometimes I probably shouldn't, but I tell our guys we play who they tell us to play, and we got to go out and win. So that's the biggest thing. And we can say what we want, but everybody in 4A, second, third, and fourth round is good football teams. So if you're playing on Thanksgiving, you've had a great year. You've had to win some tough games, and I think, you know, our schedule was tough early in the regular season, and I think that really helped us. So, you know, like I said, we play who we want to play or who they tell us to play, and we just got to go take care of it.
Well, you've definitely been taking care of them, knocking them down 11 in a row, Coach Capone. And, I mean, it's not like you guys haven't won state championships before. You're in the big boy football, that big 4A. There's nowhere you can't duck anybody anymore. And I think you guys have adjusted to that climate the last couple of years. I think you have put big opponents on your schedule, and I don't think you fear anybody. And going to Weddington is one of the toughest places to play. Your fan crowd is amazing. The tradition there, the rings. I think everybody dangles the rings. Y'all pass out rings in the stands, and they literally just dangling all y'all state championship rings from soccer to daggone volleyball, anything, football, and it's so loud that it messes with the other team.
No, it's a good place to play, and we've had a lot of success there, and I think our crowd and our community feeds off of it. You know, so that's just another thing that I love about the school and the community. And you know, but we're gonna have a tough task with AC Reynolds, and you know, they're a good football team. They're gonna come in and be physical. And you know, when I got here as an assistant coach, you know, we've had a bunch of battles with them. You know, I guess we played them like 2 or 3 years in a row, and you know, one year they had to come down to us. The other year we had to go up to them when Rico was on their team. And you know, Coach Laws and Coach Craig, they do a great job. They're extremely well coached, and it's going to be a dogfight. But you know, like I said, when you're playing on Thanksgiving, you're in 4th round. You know, you expect it. So.
All right, that's Coach Andy Capone. All they do is win. I swear I think that Weddington's kind of become the new Catholic, and they just don't make no mistakes, don't beat themselves. They grind on you. They're physical. And before you know it, you're down, and you ain't getting back into it. They're like a rattlesnake or a boa constrictor, and they just squeeze the life out of you just a little bit by a little bit. But they were there. They got that big game. Weddington, obviously, you know, we've seen them with AC Reynolds with back-to-back big wins over Chambers, over Butler, 12-1. They're going to travel down to Weddington to take on the Warriors. They're 12-1. And then we see that top game. Cam, we'll come to you in that one here in a bit. Huff, 11-2, going up to face off the number 1 Greensboro Grimsley Warriors, 13-0. Let's dig into that Weddington game first. We just had Coach Capone. Who wants to go first? Coach Greiner?
Yeah. I'm excited about this game. This is the game I plan on attending. I'm really excited to see is AC Reynolds keeping this miracle run and going, knocking down each Charlotte team back to back to back. I think Weddington's a different type of opponent. They're going to be looking at themselves in the mirror a little bit. A team that's not going to beat themselves, a team that's used to being there. You know, Weddington's got the pedigree that they've won multiple state championships. I said that, you know, in the stands you can probably hear, you know, all their fans just dangling all the rings that they've accumulated in all their sports in the last 3 to 4 years, which can be intimidating. And I like to see if AC Reynolds can keep that, you know, defensive type football, you know, bend but don't break, let you make a mistake. Because I don't think either one of these teams is going to make a mistake, and I'm just going to see who can make the big play to win at the end. And I'm excited to see this game.
Oh, Grant, you're right. I mean, honestly, you called it a miracle run, and I think that's a little disrespectful. I mean, I think this game is the Superman meme of just teams pointing at each other, where it's just like AC Reynolds and Weddington are just the ultimate. You make a mistake first, I'm going to capitalize on that. I mean, I think we've never called a team that we've seen beat, you know, Chambers and Butler in back-to-back weeks as a miracle or as a Make-A-Wish kid. Like, this is a dang good football team that has done.
No doubt.
No, and I think, you know, I think we have to kind of, you know, they're not from our area, and I think we kind of get with that sometimes. I'm like, man, wow, like we didn't expect that. But really watching that team, I mean, you look at it, got great special teams, you know, has a very solid defense, and has an offense that's put up points against lesser opponents that still does enough to be effective. And I think that, you know, if they're here, you know, they would be of the caliber of these teams that they've faced so far. And I just think this is going to be a game, like you said, it's going to be a clean game. But if one team doesn't show up to play, we know that other team's going to take advantage. So I'm with you. I mean, I think this is a very exciting game, and I think that the team that wins this will dang sure be a worthy regional final participant.
No doubt. Do you not think that each team's looking at themselves in the mirror, though, like the way that they're playing, play good defense, field position, don't make mistakes, counterattack when they make a mistake? You know, I feel like both teams play very similar. Maybe not the exact
Superman meme. You know, Superman meme when they're pointing at each other, and like to me, they're a very similar team.
Yeah, no doubt.
Very, very much. One of the things when you were just trying to define the type of team and how they go about things, I think we all know they're highly disciplined, high technique, team. But when I think about them, as you were defining different, I guess, roles for them, I see them as a big heavyweight boxer that can step into the ring and take punches and just keeps on going. You can't take him down, and he delivers heavy punches. That's Weddington in my book. Every time I tell someone that has never taken a team to Weddington, what's it going to be like? And what I tell them is, you're going to get punched in the mouth. They are a hard-hitting team.
Rocky Marciano.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad you're going to be at the game. Someone will be there. Maybe we can do some Hooters stuff.
I might be there too.
That's all I wanted to say. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game.
I just want Grice to show up. Grice got the fresh shape up. Look at Grice.
You're late. I've been here.
Grice looks good, doesn't he?
I mean, it looked fantastic, my man.
The playoff beard's got to come off when you lose.
I ain't had time to
Grice,
cut
you
it.
look good all over, brother.
I know. I got to get a little shape up. You're right.
What's up, Cam? What you got?
All right. I didn't know I was up. I was just letting y'all finish y'all's little side conversation. But, I mean, when we talk about AC Reynolds, I mean, they obviously they've been tested. They beat 2 Charlotte area teams back-to-back weeks. Close games, and that's why I'm going to give Weddington the advantage here. I mean, you know, anybody that can hold a Coach Jonathan Grice coached offense to 14 points is a really good squad. Then they go and they play a Northwest Guilford team. I don't know if Tanner Ballou was playing in that game, but he did play.
No, he didn't. He broke his
No, he
wrist.
didn't play. Okay, well, I mean, they beat him by 3 or 4 scores, but nonetheless, I mean, they were down their starting quarterback, but still, nonetheless, Weddington is a very solid team.
Coach Jonathan Grice coached team. Trying to talk like Alex.
Right.
He's trying to be Alex.
Well, here we go. Yeah.
I'd love to talk about the Huff at Grimsley. I think that, you know, there is no question. You know, we always question like Huff in the playoffs and things in the past. I've said from day one, I think Huff will win a state championship this year. I've not wavered on that. I think that they've been battle tested. They fixed some mistakes that they've realized what they needed to do. They're playing more as a unit together. I think that you have a passionate head coach that's like playing for something else. It's a little bit more involved. He's calling the offense now. He has a little bit more say-so what's going on. There's something about the rally cry of the Huff team that they have had no doubt the hardest task out of anybody in the playoffs right now. You know, week 1 had a tough matchup. Week 2 had a tough matchup. Week 3, unbelievable matchup. Now they're going against Grimsley, who's been knocking people down that we said Independence might still be there. So, I mean, Huff, if they're able to perform this aspect of beating a Grimsley, which I think they will, I think their defense is unbelievable. I think out of all teams, there's some great defenses. They are the best, and that's what wins football games late when it gets colder. Offensively, they have some big play makers, but I think they realize how to play as a team. Like, field goal is a good play for them. 3 points is literally like 10 points with their defense. So when they score 3 and you have 0, it's that hard to score against them. And they're learning to play field position, and and they're comfortable winning 17-10. A 7-point lead for Huff is like a 20-point lead for someone else. And I think that capability, you know, makes them successful against Grimsley, even though they're undefeated and they got some big-time players. I just think that they're suffocating, and the colder it gets, it's harder and harder to move the ball against them.
No,
Yeah,
Sam,
100%. Sam, to your point. Yeah, sorry about that. Sam, to your point, I mean, you know, saying a field goal is like a touchdown or like 10 points to them. I mean, the majority of that first half against East Forsyth, it was 3-0. And so, I mean, but their defense just steps on that field. And I mean, Jalen Rayner hit the deck like 10 or 11 times in that game. He was sacked that many times, double-digit sacks. And so you got a defense like that. Grimsley has no easy task ahead of them. But, I mean, they're also a team that's putting up, 68, 69 points in the first round, 50-something and 40-something against Independence, who, it's a very balanced team. But, I mean, they still Independence gave up 44, I think, to Grimsley. So, I mean, it's going to be a good game. But Huff's defense has not yet proven – or, excuse me, how do I phrase this? They haven't proven that they can be beaten yet, at least, I mean, other than twice.
Well, the way that they've getting, the first week, it was you're figuring yourself out because you got a lot of young players. I think that Chachi, Stevie Williams, The other guys of that defense staff have figured out how to play those younger guys and whatnot. And that's the thing about a Grimsley. Grimsley is unbelievable, right? But, like, how do you feel? Can you win a game 17-10, things like that? Like, some teams that are used to scoring 40 points and all of a sudden, you know, you might get 2 first downs and you're punting. You start getting frustrated, like you need to change what you're doing. And it becomes like, you know, I'm comfortable winning a game 17-10. You know, Huff's telling themselves that. But another team's used to, hey, let's go to a 50, 40 point, you know, like you're playing in daggone college football these days. And you're not playing in that type of game. You start doing things you're uncomfortable. That's where the pick six comes, the fumble recovery in the red zone, you know, things of that nature come because you're doing things you're not used to doing. And I think that's what they'll fall into.
Well, I mean, you look at their 2 losses. I mean, their first loss was first game of the year against a very talented Tommy Knox coach Dutch Fork team. And then their second loss against Mallard Creek, there were no offensive touchdowns scored. I mean, there was 2 pick sixes that defined that win for Mallard Creek. So, I mean, this defense is the truth. It'll be interesting to see how their defense plays against that Grimsley offense.
No, I agree. And again, everybody keeps skirting around it. His name is Nolan Hoosier, the kicker for Huff. Again, one of the most valuable weapons that is out there. Again, he's a guy that
picked up a Clemson offer.
He's again. I think we've seen that comment in there. He's the best kicker in the state, probably in the southeast area. Nolan Hoosier.
He's going to break.
I want to get his name out there because again,
I thought he should have been a Mr. Football. Yeah,
I mean,
that's a great point. We can still have
that's a great segue into it. So we're going to go ahead and let's drop Mr. Football. Let's go, Langston. All right. Hey, man, we've been talking about this all year. We've had our list. I've just painstaking, going through stats, information. Cam has been giving me his opinion every week. It felt like I've asked Guru, Griner. We have now got to the point where we are ready to drop the final 3 finalists. Langston, let's get into it. Let's drop. I think we're going to the first one here. Let's go ahead and drop that. That first guy we have here is one of our finalists is Jalen Alexander Rayner, quarterback from East Forsyth. Again, has had a phenomenal year. He burst on the scene the beginning of this year. I think it was against Northwest Guilford, where I think he had a 6 or 7 touchdown performance and immediately announced himself as one of the best athletes and players in the state. Of course, he ended the season last week a little unceremoniously against Huff. But as you can see with his highlights, I mean, he could do it all this year. He was the key catalyst for this East Forsyth offense and a kid that you were aware you knew that you had to look at, and he was a guy that you had to account for every single week. Cam, I know you saw him last week and he didn't have the best performance, but just talk about a little bit what you saw from this kid to make him warranted as one of these finalists.
I mean, he's so versatile. I mean, he can scramble out of the pocket. Yeah, I know I mentioned he was sacked quite a few times, but I mean, he did extend a lot of plays with his legs, made good passes down the field. Their long touchdown was like a 23, 24-yard pass. Caught the safety rolling down, just tossed it right over his head. So, I mean, the kid can play. I mean, he's really, really talented.
I agree 100%. Again, kudos to Jalen Alexander Rayner, a big-time performance, big-time player out of East Forsyth. Let's look at our second finalist here. And that is Jaden Davis from Providence Day. I think everybody is aware, again, over 3,000 yards this year, culminated his season last week with a big-time victory over Charlotte Christian to win the state championship, the D1 for the NCHSAA. Again, big time player here, 6 foot, 180 pounds, was the key catalyst in this offense. Again, big time receivers, but he was the maestro that was getting everybody the ball. Dale, you were there again watching that state championship performance, which I think was one of his best this year, that and the Raven Gap game. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw and why you think he's warranted to make this list, Dale?
Well, that statement about, big time players play big in big games, and without question, he played big in this game. I've seen him 4 times this year in person, 3 or 4. I'd have to go back and count. And this was by far his best game. Why should he be where he's at on here? Well, you can see in this game, the kid can throw. He's got great accuracy, reads his receivers most of the time. I don't know what more to say, man. He is a phenomenal quarterback.
I agree.
Phenomenal player.
I agree, and he deserves it. And finally, let's go to our third finalist. We actually went down east with this. The only guy still playing right now, and that's Mason Fortune out of Millbrook High School. And we highlighted a big matchup they have against Hillside. This quarterback has been one of the main reasons why. Again, his performance, he's been able to distribute the ball all around with some big-time performances, and he is more than worthy of being the third finalist on our Mr. Football listing. Guru, I got to go to you. You've seen him definitely enough this playoffs and during the regular season. Talk about what you really like about him.
Well, not just playoffs and regular season. We've been watching Mason Fortune since like the 9th grade. I mean, he's been putting up buku numbers since day one when he walked on that campus there in Millbrook High School. We thought before, maybe it was an anomaly. Maybe he had Wesley Grimes and that was it, and that's all he threw to. Hey, guess what? Wesley Grimes gone and his stature went up. He's got Nathan Leacock. He distributes it, and I'm glad you said distributes. He distributes the ball so well. There you see it right there. Such accuracy, such poise for a young quarterback. Remember, he's still kind of young. He is such a good decision maker, throws the ball around the field very well. Obviously, you can tell he's well coached and does a good job inside that film room as well. I like this young man.
Agreed 100%. Again, I think it's a worthy list of three finalists that we have here, Mr. Football. Grind, I want to take it to you just to give you a reaction. I know, again, I always like to have my defensive guy. I know normally we are a little more diverse with our listing, but I feel like these three quarterbacks throughout the entire year were far and away the best players that we had on the list. I mean, go and give your reaction to the announcement of these three finalists.
I think it's hard to argue these three. These guys are at the helm and they're leading their teams. East Forsyth had an amazing year. This guy literally strapped him on his back, and his numbers were just outrageously great. The other two, either won the championship in Providence State just now, Jaden Davis, and the guy Mason Fortune. I mean, my goodness, when he plays, he's not very tall in stature, but his presence is big and it's so noticeable. He's knocked down some big time competition on the east side, and these three are deserving right now as finalists, no doubt.
Agreed, 100%. So again, these are our three finalists. We're actually going to have them on the show. Again, we'll give out the award the week before the state finals, the show that we have before the state finals. So we need everybody paying attention. Again, let everybody know, congratulate these guys. This is a huge honor. Again, this is the Mr. Football that's recognized for the state of North Carolina. So just for these guys to be finalists can tell you the type of players they were. We all know how deep the talent is in our state. So again, kudos to them. Again, that's Jalen Alexander Rayner there on the left. From East Forsyth, that's Jaden Davis in the middle. From Providence Day, and on the far right, that's Mason Fortune out of Millbrook High School. Again, kudos to our semifinalists and all of those who made the cut or been on the list at some point this year. I mean, it's hard to break it down to these three, but again, we're happy that, to see the performance that these three elevated among the rest, and they've been named as our finalists. So we'll go ahead and go to Fresh Faces. All right. Hey, we have a special playoff edition of Fresh Faces. Yep, that's right. It's the G&G edition. Grinder, let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going out to Terry Sanford High School. Jonathan Higgins Simmons. Again, this is a 6'2", 200-pound junior. Has rushed for a team-high 786 yards and 10 touchdowns. As we know, Terry Sanford beat Eastern Alamance 27-17 in their third-round game Friday, and will play county rivals 71st in the state quarterfinal on Friday here. Let's look at some film we got of Higgins Simmons here. He's a big-time player, right, Griner?
Yeah, anytime you got Higgins Simmons as a last name, you better be good at football because that's a lot of spelling you got to do throughout the school day, so it better make it worth your while. Love it. They got a big task. 71st is a good football team. This guy's going to have to play just like he's been doing all week.
You see how he danced to those guys? Again, I love his agility. Even though he's 6'2", 200, I mean, he looked like he's been in some ballet classes there. Those fleet feet there got him in the end zone. I'm excited for that big-time game coming up, but that is a big-time guy.
He's a big dude.
Definitely. Let's come back to the Charlotte area here. Again, Sincere McIntyre. We've got a 5'6", 140-pound senior. You, of course, finished his senior season on Friday night. Had 522 rushing yards, 521 receiving, and 451 yards and kick returns for the Independence Patriots. And Friday's 44-36 loss at Grimsley, as deep as the players, Patriots have been in 13 years with this third-round defeat. McIntyre rushed 4 times for 16 yards, but caught 7 passes for 93 yards and 2 big touchdowns in this game. Again, Sincere had a big-time year and was one of those guys I think that DJ liked, where he could run the ball and could catch the balls. I feel like he's got 6 or 7 of those guys. Here's one guy. Let's check out his highlights, Grinder. What do you see from him here?
Well, I mean, like McFadden loves this guy right here because he does it all. And it's not about his size and stature. It's about the size of his heart. And you can tell he plays with that. Like if the running game is too stiff, hey, we're going to put you out on the island. They did a great job of isolating him with his matchups and being able to get the ball in the air. And he took advantage of it with 2 touchdowns. That just fell a little short in this game.
Definitely. Big-time guy here. Again, glad we could highlight him. All right, let's go out west to Drawn High School with Elijah Tillery. It's again 6'6", 185-pound junior. It's led Drawn to a 12-1 record, and again, it's their first berth in the quarterfinals. Drawn won its first ever third-round playoff game on Friday, and Elijah was a big part of that. For the season, he's completed 115 of 188 passes, 1,965 yards, and 28 touchdowns with only 4 interceptions. He's also rushed 55 times, Grinder, for 456 yards and 8 touchdowns. Again, Drawn is doing some stuff they've never done. This big-time quarterback seems to be the reason why here, Grinder.
Yeah, and you talking about sweet feet. This guy's got sweet feet himself in the quarterback. I mean, 6'6", and he looks like he's got, great trunk on him. He's throwing the ball well, comes out fast. This is the reason why they're made it to this far in the playoffs. This guy single-handedly is strapping him on his back and doing great things.
Oh, definitely. Lightning fast, quick release there. Again, a guy that seems to get the ball out of his hand. And for some of those lower divisions, that's a load that you got to tackle. So like 6'6", 185. So, hold on for basketball season just right now. It looks like he's got a lot to do in football season as they continue. Let's come back to the Charlotte area, Grinder. We've got a guy that you're aware of here, Katie Smith. Again, a freshman quarterback has really, gone there in the fray against some big-time teams. Again, for this year, he's throwing for 387 yards and 7 touchdowns. Also has some rushing yards here, 89 yards on 12 carries. But I think the biggest thing to highlight here is this is a freshman leading a team in one of the hardest conferences in the Queen City 3A, 4A division. Again, a guy that's been able to do it and take you guys far, Grinder. Again, I watched some of them, was definitely impressed with his maturity and how well he was able to do this season leading you guys offensive attack, Grinder. Talk some words about a guy you know very well.
Yeah, and these stats that we're highlighting right now, these are just his playoff stats. So he did a great job of progressing throughout the year. And this guy was going to start for us at DB, and he did game 1 versus Butler. And he says, Coach, he's a guy that's a born leader. And he says, I can play quarterback. Let me do it, and I'll get it done. Even knowing that this is one of the best athletes we have on the team as a freshman, he daggone led our team. And the reason why we had so much success down the road was because of this. A little fun fact about this guy. I know you all saw the video. You have to check it out on YouTube. But remember when Luke Kuechly got juked out by that 10-year-old? This is KD Smith right here. He's the one that gave him the move. And then the next time that they did the little thing, the tackling drill, Luke Kuechly literally tackled him. He's like, nah, this kid ain't going to embarrass me no more. This kid's a dog. He don't look at his age. Look at the size of his heart. Look, I'm really excited about West Charlotte football having this guy on our team the next 3 years.
Definitely. Again, that's big to highlight. I love those fresh faces. We get the freshman fresh faces as we have there. Look forward to his growth and maturation over these next 3 years. Again, hey, if you guys want to point out a fresh face to us, please reach out to us at Observer Preps on Twitter, at Langston Works Jr. on Twitter. Reach out to me at Coach Jay Grice as well. And again, we love to highlight guys from Murphy to Manio. We want to make sure, again, if you're a guy that's been doing well this season and don't feel like you've gotten highlighted, hey, Fresh Faces is a place for you. Again, for G&G, we're out.
All right. I see the 3 of us on the screen, so that only means one thing. It's time to lock the door.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome.
All right, Coach Croner, I'm assuming you want to defer, correct?
No doubt.
All right. I knew it. Coach Grice right there will receive. Let's go ahead and write in our first question here for Coach versus Coach. Thanksgiving week edition, by the way. So let's get the graphic up on the screen. I guess.
Man, look how clean you look, though. You got the fresh. Everybody looks so good. I'm like, I look like the mountaineer.
I mean, you just got out of the season. I had a week. I saw my girlfriend, realized she exists again. Like, you know, we're back to like life and stuff. So I had to like, you know, cleanse myself from the season.
And here I look old.
Speaking of
It's
girlfriends,
okay.
watch out. Chris is on Tinder, ladies. So
Hey, I can't keep a girlfriend, so I don't know what the problem is. Maybe it's me.
It's always us.
I don't know. Anyway, man, Charlotte Athletic Director Mike Hill called new coach Biff Poggi the ultimate disruptor, and that Poggi said that he wants to come in and win the American Athletic Conference and make it to the football playoffs. That is lofty goals at a school that only has one winning season since it started playing here in recent years. Guys, what do you think are the three important things that he's got to do in his job taking over? Coach Grice, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of jotted some notes down of just three things I think he should do. I mean, I think the first thing, which will tell a lot to the prior failed administration, is he's got to hire great coordinators and build that strategy on both sides of the ball. I mean, I think you've got to get those coordinators that are key, whether it's offense and on the defensive side and whatever you want to do. If on the offensive side of the ball, he wants to build that kind of power run game that they have up at Michigan. Get a guy that exemplifies that and really stands behind that. If on the defensive side, he wants to build an odd front guy that deals with spilling the ball out to his athletic, rangy nickel or DBs and wants to have a guy there. You need to get a guy that believes in that. So really building those coordinators and getting competent guys on both sides of the ball and really anchoring them to make Charlotte a home for the next few years. Also, second, he's got to build I call it build recruiting strategy. Got to build that recruiting strategy, whatever it may be. Again, I think that he should build, from this area going forward. Again, that's whatever he's got to establish. I thought, and I got kind of some flack from the Charlotte, bloggers or whatever, if you will, for that issue. But again, the last administration stated that Charlotte was a priority for them and then failed to do that. Again, if he states that Florida's a priority for him and Georgia, then go do that. Whatever your strategy is, be consistent on that and go ahead and kind of, really dominate whatever it is that you're doing in order to be successful. And then finally, he's got to get a great strength and conditioning coach in here. I think that offseason development and Charlotte, I mean, we never really saw sustained success. And I think that's a great element with that of making sure you're spending the best money you can to build the great S&C program and the trainers to make sure that those guys are sustaining whatever success or whatever building blocks they have to ensure they're getting better year after year.
That's a good plan, Grice. I think that, I'm actually excited about this hire. I think it was outside the box. I think you're going with someone that, is used to being successful in life itself. He's willing to take risk. He's made a lot of money for his own family and his own, generations after him. I think that, it's not necessarily a young guy, but it's a guy that's not been a head coach on the college level yet. And I like that aspect. I like being able to take risk. You see what I'm saying? So this guy has turned around. I know it's high school programs, but he has become, great. I think it was Gilman, St. Francis, things like that. Gilman literally was nothing. And then he turned it into something. And I think that he has a vision. That's the key. He has a vision. He's not scared of it. He's going to tackle it. The next step is going to be able to the coordinators are going to be critical. They got to line up with his vision. We got to be creative on defense. We got to, literally what do we rank 130th out of 131 or something at UNCC? To be successful, it's terrible, right? We're second to last, correct? So we have to be great on defense. What are we going to do to change that? Obviously recruiting is a big deal, but we have to be creative. We can't do what Alabama's doing without Alabama players. We need to be able to do certain things that's creative. If it is an odd front and we're using schemes where we got tweener type players, but it works in the system that's creative and things, I think he can bring that capability. So hiring the right people that can carry out that vision. And lastly, I think that what can he do to make it, be successful in recruiting Charlotte? I think Charlotte does have a great aspect because what they said is we haven't sold out a game in Charlotte in a long time, or at least we're averaging we have one of the smallest stadiums there is, correct? And we're only averaging about 10,000 people, and there's maybe 16,000. We should be maxing that out. It should be people trying to sell their tickets to make a little money to get into the game because it's so hard to get into. I think he can create that stir and to be able to do some things. And he'll think outside the box. He might hire, a guy down the street that believes in like recruiting the aspect the way he's doing it. They just need to line up with his vision. I'm excited about it. You know, I feel like he's got some cojones to what he's been saying to do, and I'm all for that. Really am.
Great points for both of you. There's no question that Charlotte and North Carolina in general is an extreme hotbed for talent when it comes to college football recruiting. I've been doing this for 25 years. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. You can go and look at all the metrics across the board, whether you want to look at scholarships, NFL players, whatever. North Carolina is one of the best of the best. So, hey, he's got the talent to pull from. You guys know it. You were on the front lines where the rubber meets the road doing the coaching. So great points from both of you. We're going to go on to the question number 2 here tonight. Sam, coming back at you. Oh, and by the way, Sam, it is not Tinder that I'm on. It's Bumble, and I think Christ got me on Hinge as well. So, you know, any single 40, 45-year-old moms out there, hey, hit me up. You know my Twitter. But anyway, coming to you, Coach Christ, or Coach Griner. Would adding a 5th classification – look at Coach right there. Would adding a 5th classification to the NCHSAA, would it make the playoffs better this year? Always. What do you think, Coach Christ, or Coach Griner? Come to you.
Yeah, I think this 5th A would be perfect because there's such dominant teams in classifications of ADMs. Like there's some schools that literally have 25 plus students, and they're going against teams that have 1,900 students. Like that is a huge difference. If you have 600 more students on average, then basically what you're saying is you have 10 more athletes guaranteed compared to another team, like at least 10. You got to, I mean, it's that big of a deal. I think that having that standard, we would mock a little bit of what South Carolina was able to do. And there's such juggernauts in the 5A, and then it goes to 4A and then 3. I think it just makes it more like everyone can compete with each other. There's some teams, it takes a miracle to beat these gigantic teams because they have almost 3,000 kids on a year in, year out basis. And I think that 5 classifications in North Carolina would just be just perfect. I think that the 4 AA, the 4 single A, the 3 AA, I think that was just too much going on. I really, really like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think that'd be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the 5A class might be, is probably better, or even 6. But as far as better playoffs, no. Without question, the four classifications we have some amazing playoffs. And again, and it's funny with the way the brackets happen this year, especially in the 4A division, you really see on one side kind of that it turned into almost like a big 4A, little 4A, and like how South Carolina has the upper state, lower state. It's almost like the upper 4A, lower 4A. I went back and looked at the 2018, 2019 ADMs, and you have between AC Reynolds and Weddington are about like the 1,300 to 1,500 population, and then they're going against the winner of Grimsley and Huff, which we know are probably in the 1,1800, and I mean, I'm going up to even probably 2,300. I know it's dated by a few years, so I'm sure they've gone up. But I mean, you look at Huff and Grimsley as like the higher 4A, regional championship, and then we have the lower. So it's really made it great. I mean, I think that's been kind of the cool thing about this playoffs is AC Reynolds and Weddington have been 2 schools, and even us. I mean, we were able to kind of make it a little further, being some of the smaller schools. The playoffs as they have it now are phenomenal. That does not mean that we shouldn't have 5 or 6 classifications. We should, and then you would have some of those teams playing each other a little sooner. But I love the way that these 2 years of the 64 teams, it's really had an NCAA tournament-like field. You've had some major upsets that you didn't expect. So I've loved it, and I think it's been phenomenal, but it probably should change.
I love it too. I do think that 6 would be the best number for North Carolina, but hey, the playoffs this year have been phenomenal. I harken back to, the days when I was coaching prior to 2002, before they subdivided. The playoffs, I mean, first round games were legit. Second round games were the bomb. If you made it the third round, we were lucky to do one year. I mean, unreal. Big time play on Thanksgiving. You knew you were playing a big dog, and I like seeing that, but hey, you're probably right. 6 may be the best. But anyway, coach versus coach. Let's go to the last question. Coach Jonathan Grice, staying with you. Turf field injuries are an issue in the NFL. Is it also creating the case for injuries here in high school?
Oh, I don't think that it's the same. Again, I love when, these questions, whether it's Gary Richmond or whoever puts these things together and compare to NFL. I mean, Griner just talked 2 weeks ago about being on a grass field that had anthills. Like, we don't have the grass field maintenance that you have, even when you go out to maybe Richmond County or somewhere out in an area where you have actual people tending to the grass. If we had that, then yes, grass would be okay. But you have the problem of being at fields where you've got if an AD has a green thumb, then heck, you're in a better situation than most. But people, are really trying to talk about grass fields like you have the people to take care of that, and you don't. I mean, these grass fields often become more hazardous because you have fields that maybe need to be recrowned. Does the school have enough money? Heck, we went through COVID, so a lot of these places don't. And what are we going to cut out if we don't have enough money? But they've got to have uniforms. These places have got to have all of the necessary elements to actually field a team. And well, if they're in a cow pasture, it'll work. I mean, it's not going to rain, right? That seems to always be the forgotten thing. So I love the fact that we have turf fields at a lot of these places, because that's one thing that kind of can be cut out off of the year-to-year maintenance. So our kids can be safe. And like Griner said, don't have to worry about playing on treacherous grass fields.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. This is exactly the point that I wanted to make. Our coach versus coach, we're becoming like too much like brothers now. Like,
yeah, right.
We're tag team partners, but this is exactly right. We do not have the funds and the capability to have just a perfect green grass turf, like a real capability that the NFL does. Like, I've been on the Carolina Panthers when we go out there and they treat us and bring the coach. I'm like, my gosh, I could sleep on this grass. I used to practice on grass where we literally were picking up trash, and there was big divots, and then there was mud that was hardened up and it was cratered, and you might roll an ankle in that. That was hazardous. So, the turf actually keeps us safer in high school football. So, no, it's actually the opposite. You're exactly right.
All right. Is that it? Are we going to agree and hold hands tonight?
I know it's
the questions are I hate with this. Like, well, hey, be like the NFL. Let's have these fields. And Grinder sitting there complaining, and we played in a field. I'm out here like Phil Mickelson because I've got a divot in my hand. I've got the grass. I'm trying to stuff it back on the plate so we can use it.
There's the truth.
So shout out to my former offensive coordinator, athletic director at West Mecklenburg. Coach Lemon kept that field phenomenally. It looked like the Panthers field did. Every week he went out there. He was patching grass.
Cam, I want to. Well, hold on. Sure, we got a comment about the grass fields before I come back to that. Somebody's agreeing with you, Sam, with Bryce about the maintaining the fields.
We can agree. Here, Langston, we agreed, and he's like, Sam Grounder, you're right. He agrees with you.
That's right.
I was in the back working on basketball, so I appreciate you guys holding it down for me. Cam,
think about it. The AD, what Dale just said, though. Think about the AD's roles 20 years ago compared to now. There's so much on these AD's plates now. How can they think about being a green thumb?
I agree. No, there's no questions.
It's ridiculous what all they have to do these days.
We need full-time ADs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Period.
Absolutely. 1,000% yes. 1,000% yes.
No doubt.
Cam, I want to come to you because you made a comment about Millbrook, and I think this is tongue-in-cheek. Somebody's saying that, quoting you about Mason Fortune whatever game. You obviously think Millbrook's going to win, but after this guy does not.
I mean, hey. Anything can happen. At this round of the playoffs, anything can happen. Yes, Hillside's got a good defense, but hey, Mason Fortune got past Nick Drew's defense, so I'm filling in for Alex on the East tonight, and I'll stand by it.
Absolutely. This is AKA Devil Dog, the show's biggest fan. Well, we appreciate you watching this show. Please keep watching every week. All right, Cam, coming back to you. I know you've been chomping at the bit to talk about your school.
Come on, Cam. Give him one shot, Langston.
K Nice is saying, I'll give him one shot. K Nice is saying Charlotte has recruited 100-mile radius, which is what we've been saying for weeks, and you've been pushing back on. So I want to let you comment on that.
I'm not saying they should not, recruit the area. Oh, there goes my green screen. Anyway, I'm not saying that they should not recruit the Charlotte area. I've never said that. I never will say that because there's really good talent in the Charlotte area. What I'm saying is Charlotte should not settle for lesser talent just to make sure they're recruiting this area. If Poggi wants to go out there and recruit Georgia, Texas, California, Florida, if that's what he wants to do and he thinks he can get those guys, by all means do it. But there is still talent here that should be recruited, most definitely. But ultimately, to attract the top talent that you're going to get to win the American Conference, you need to get players in there. that are going to win football games.
Mac
Win
Brown,
football games, it attracts more talent.
When Mac Brown came to North Carolina the first time, he put a fence around North Carolina. He said, the first thing I got to do is own North Carolina. And he owned North Carolina the first time, and he's owning it now. And look what I know they had a hiccup last week, but look at what they're doing. You got to put, and in Pogie's case, he's got to put a fence around Charlotte. He's got to own Charlotte.
Right.
You can't go out to California and Georgia and bring 3-star players. We got 3-star players right here in your backyard.
Langston, let me say something to that. You know, I'm a State fan, and
we know.
And Coach Dorn, you know, he did this thing. This is our state, you know, our state.
Y'all stop messing.
And he has. I was looking at the recruiting list today, you know, of the top 100 and where they're going to, and it's like Carolina. They, you know, then you see State, and then Carolina.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about of the players here out of North Carolina.
Sure.
He's owning the state, and that's what you got to do. That's what we've been saying.
Yeah, he got. I mean, he doesn't have to own the state, but he's got to own.
He's got to own the area around Charlotte. Exactly.
He's got to offer these kids earlier, because I hear from so many kids, and this isn't Pogie's fault. This is some of the previous coaches that I wanted to get a Charlotte offer, but it never came, or it came late, and they feel like they were like, the girl nobody wanted to go out with, so you just asked because she's the last girl in the club at 2 a.m. So I think that's. I think that's something they got to fix. Grace, it wasn't that funny, Grace.
Well, meet with all the coaches.
I'm looking at Guru.
Make one point about this. If I can make a point about this.
Go ahead.
The problem with going into Florida, everybody in the whole daggone United States goes into Florida and Texas, okay? Yeah. What I'm saying is, if you're getting a level 6 player from Florida and you got a level 3 player in North Carolina, I'm telling you, it will work out better for you. When Virginia Tech was successful, they owned North Carolina. What I'm saying is, there's players right now that are going to Army, they're going to Navy, they're going to Appalachian. Why are these players going there and not Charlotte? I'm not talking about North Carolina and NC State. Mm-hmm. I'm saying those level guys have to go to UNCC and own it and be excited about it. You have to build a community.
Can't say UNCC,
like together.
Cam, can't say UNCC. Charlotte.
I got yelled at for that this week.
Cam, hearing all this, what do you say?
I mean, like I said, I've never disagreed that you don't recruit this area, but I'm never going to back off on the fact that you still recruit the best no matter where it's at. If you're a D1 program and you want to be successful, and I mean, like Pogie says, you want to win the American right away, which is a very lofty goal, you got to recruit the best players, no matter where it comes from. Although you do need to have a foothold in this area.
If you're losing players out of your backyard,
you don't have
Appalachian State, Western Carolina.
That attitude is what's gotten Charlotte to the place that is at. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. This is the problem. You don't have a brand.
I just said we'll have this conversation in 3 years. That's all I've just resigned to with all the bloggers that have killed me.
Sam, my question, Sam and Chris, you talked to a lot of coaches. Sam, Grace, and Chris. What do coaches feel like their relationship is with Charlotte versus Appalachian State versus A&T versus other schools like that?
UNCC during August, they will invite us over for beer and wings. Congratulations. You don't know half my players' names. I'll give you an example. Number 15 right now for Kings Mountain should have an offer from UNCC right now. He is a dog.
Is that AJ? Is that AJ?
Yeah. I'm telling you right now, like that kid right there is a game changer for your program. I guarantee it. 100%. And he's getting like mid-major, like he's getting those little. I'm telling you right now, he would start for UNCC right now. Like Cam, I think you can do both things. I think you can go out to Texas and go out to these places and go after these guys, but you got to own your backyard. And
coach, that's literally what I've been saying the whole time.
But what we're saying is there's never been an emphasis to own the backyard. And the first thing you start talking about when we say that is we got to go to Texas, we got to go to California.
Yeah. Like you can't do both. You don't have a brand yet. So if you go to Texas, okay, UNCC shows up at Texas. Okay, I'm just going to give an example because I do these type of things myself. And you're going to this premier high school program, okay, and they got 2 guys going to Oklahoma, 3 guys going to Texas or being recruited by Texas. And then all of a sudden UNCC shows up. Guess what? Biff ain't getting to talk to those 7 dudes. Coach ain't going to even let them talk to them. All right? You're going to get the next tier guys. He's going to try to promote these next tier guys. You ain't even talking to those guys. You have to build a relationship here first, win, get a national name. Then when you step into that campus in Texas or Florida, whatever, like, hey, this is UNCC. We win this daggone conference all the time. We're taking it to the next step. Then you can talk to those type of players. I'm telling you, that's how it works.
I think
you're not going to build a.
I think that's great advice. I'm trying to get done before 10 o'clock. Give me your final thoughts, Sam.
Final thoughts is we just opened up first home game at West Charlotte, going against Hardin tonight. So I'm sorry I was a little late, but it's a beautiful thing to see West Charlotte community coming back to the games. It was our first home game. We weren't able to play at home in football this year. So just to see the community rally behind West Charlotte, I thought it was a beautiful thing to see, and I think I needed to be there to see that moment. I'm super excited about next year getting to play at home at West Charlotte. So, looking forward to that. I know it's a long ways away from now, but just it was inspiring to see tonight.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it was a great show. I appreciate everybody coming on. That's Sam Grinder, football coach of West Charlotte. That's Dale Ross below him, CMS historian. That's Jonathan Grice, number 2 voice of high school football. That's the guru in training below. And that's the number 1 voice in high school football right above me. I'm Langston, and we are Talking Preps.